What I'm actually talking about today is utilizing dynamic creative within your social campaigns. Specifically, a couple things that I want to do are talk about kind of the fundamental differences between dynamic creative and display campaigns, how this differs from social, and that how you can actually kind of have this as like a full-on solution. So dynamic creative basically is uploading a bunch of different assets and different elements to your ad campaigns, then letting the system kind of optimize and converge on those. So it's a way to kind of like work on hitting a different target audience, but also to make things more efficient for your ad teams. So when I'm done with this, kind of things that I want you to do are be able to kind of like understand some of the fundamental differences between how we view dynamic creative for display and social. So I'll go over and I'll talk about how dynamic creative what it entails in display, which is super complex, and then what it entails in social and why they're different, and how you can action on this. This will also help you approach your marketing funnel and your campaigns from a completely new lens. A lot of the uses for dynamic creative kind of tend to be in the retargeting funnel and to kind of improve your retargeting pools. So I think it's important to kind of like understand how you can start looking at your funnels differently. From there, you can also use the data that you're getting from these campaigns to actually craft different user personas. So you understand more and more about who the actual people that you're appealing to and that you're marketing to, so you can deliver more efficient ads to them. And then you can plan dynamic campaigns between your creative teams and your media teams so that you're managing proper communication between everybody. I feel like that's something that should go without saying, right? Like we all have to talk to one another, but what's the scientific word sometimes between creative and media? I think shit show sometimes when everybody's going at it. So we've all been there. So hopefully I can give you some ways to kind of improve on that. Give me a second here. I'm going to hit this timer so I tend to be, doesn't want to work. That's fine. I tend to be long-winded. So arguably my favorite slide of the presentation, though, is the 30 seconds where I get to talk about myself. I'm actually really boring in real life. I call that out here. I like to use this headshot. It makes me look cooler than I am. My name is Chris Apaliski. I'm the Senior Director of Paid Social at Adlucent. We're an agency out of Austin, Texas. I live a couple hours north in Dallas. I run the entire social program there in the team. So as far as just quick personal things about me, music is a big hobby. You can guess that by I'm still rocking the hair even at this age, but eventually we'll see. And hockey and baseball, two big sports of mine. Dallas Stars breaking my heart since they lost the cup in 2000. I'm in Houston, so I just won't talk about baseball. I'm not sure if it's too soon for that, so apologies. Quick slide just about Adlucent. Like anybody else's agency, digital, we run the gambit, display, search, social, Google's largest shopping ad agency, about 1.5 billion of annual media managed. Tons of clients, tons of campaigns, tons of teams. Look it up, read about us, the whole 9 yards. I know you guys aren't here to listen to a spiel about Adlucent, so we'll go on. Okay, so as I mentioned, dynamic creative. A lot of times, dynamic creative optimization and display and dynamic creative versioning and social get confused as the same thing. Context clues on this slide will tell you they're not. So if that's what you were guessing, you were absolutely right. Dynamic creative optimization is deployed in display media, while dynamic creative versioning is a facet of social. They have similar goals, obviously. We're looking at uploading and breaking ads into like different elements, but they function inherently differently. So there's benefits to doing this instead of just building fully formed ads and then A/B testing, but instead like building up an ad of components and then multivariate testing, right? One of these is reaching the right person at the right time, which I know is super cliche at this point. Like we all know we're trying to reach the person at their stage in the journey of the funnel, but it does kind of help kind of hone in on where that person is. Another thing here is it helps avoid creative fatigue. I mean, if you see an ad, the same ad over and over and over again, what are you likely to do? But you're likely to tune that ad out and stop caring, right? which sucks as advertisers, feeling like, you put all your heart into something and then people just don't care anymore. So like, how can you kind of sounds like I've been burned by that before, doesn't it? Like, I'm almost sad about it. But so, how can you kind of avoid creative fatigue there? You can craft stronger personas, right? So you're getting tangible signals from the data that you collect. So I know like everybody and their dog works for a data-driven agency, but the reason why we all say that we do is because that you're collecting data about people and then you're turning and using that data to guide decisions. If you can find ways to get better data for people, um, then why not use that, right? Sounds like I have a career working at Facebook, right? Like, if you can get everybody's personal information, you can know about them. You'll be able to execute more efficient retargeting campaigns with dynamic creative, right? So again, the whole purpose of this is when you get people down the funnel to that kind of a lower funnel on point of purchase, basically, that you can actually, convince them that they need to buy your product or your service or your good or take the intended action there. And then you're also creating personalized experience at scale. So it kind of helps people feel as if like they're being marketed to specifically. And once you kind of hit that personalization aspect, then you're more likely to get somebody to convert. So again, really quick, I'm going to talk about what this is in display, just so that we can spend the bulk of the time talking about social and why the two differ from each other. So a lot of times my creative peeps will be like, oh, we need to run this DCO campaign, and it's like, it's not the same thing. Like, social is like a little bit like DCO light kind of thing. So again, what is DCO then in display? It's display ad technology. It creates personalized ads. So it's basically on the data about the user the moment that they're served of an ad. Okay. So it's real-time personalization. It's deconstructing everything into different assets, different asset libraries, and giving a marketer and advertiser the ability to kind of vary their creative delivery, right? So it's a real-time and it's on a per impression basis. Again, you'll hear me harp on this in both display and social. One of the primary uses here is retargeting. It's really, really kind of focusing on people when they're at that final stage of the funnel. And you want to boost your performance, right? So your dynamic ads are often performing better than their static counterparts. I mean, we're looking at like even sometimes like a 25 to 30% lift in performance that we've seen. That's huge. That helps a lot. So how does this work then in social? Or excuse me, in display? There's 5 different ways, right? So the first way is we're kind of like identifying, we're creating a hypothesis, right? So like, what's the main pain point of your audience and what are we trying to solve? And then as I mentioned, we're templatizing everything. So we're deconstructing ads into different asset libraries. So think of when you see an ad, every individual component of the ad, and then breaking that down, and then actually waiting for a smart, intelligent system to converge on everything. You set a learning agenda from there. So basically, what are you trying to learn? Are you concerned with how somebody's responding to your creative? Are you concerned with like messaging or sequenization or something of that nature? And then you assemble decision trees based on where you think somebody's going to go or what path that they can take. And then from there, what you're going to do is optimize on your ads, because we're running advanced testing methods. What this is multivariate testing. You're not just A/B testing, building a fully formed ad, throwing it in a sandbox and going from there. So a dynamic approach differs from your standard approach, right? Because with a standard approach, you have a mass message approach. You build an ad, you throw it out in market, and then see how it performs. With a dynamic approach, you can market to specific segments, okay? This helps in the production process, because when you're in a traditional workflow, everything is just linear, right? You're building an ad, you're seeing how it performs, you're A/B testing, you're throwing them back to market over and over and over again. Now, if it's template based, then you can kind of cut the BS a little bit, upload everything, and see how it performs. The testing potential then obviously in a standard approach is limited. I'm going to be honest with you guys, I hate myself for using the word robust on a slide, but I can't do anything about it now. It's there. So your testing potential is robust in dynamic approach, right? In other words, your multivariate testing, you have more ability to test and learn. And with a standard approach, your updates into campaigns and your trafficking times can be delayed. You can reduce this with a dynamic approach, just in the sense that you're spending less time deliberating on building ads. You can't do this by yourself. You need to use a vendor. This isn't necessarily an endorsement of any of these vendors, but specifically if you're interested in this and you wanted to take it back, and you would say, hey, well, where do I even start with that? So The nice thing alone is since it's complex in display, it's not as if you're just sitting in a, I don't know, like a dimly lit basement, like, oh my God, these campaigns. So, at least like, that there's help on the way, right? So my bread and butter, social, obviously, dynamic creative versioning in your social campaign. So now we know how it's working in display, but then how do we turn around and apply this to social? And specifically, what is it in social and how can we build out and target better, right? I like to think of DCV, as I call it, dynamic creative versioning, and social is kind of like DCO light, right? So it's not as many, you're not there's not as many like levers that you need to pull. Also a phrase that I hate, so I'm just kind of knocking them all out of the park today. Um, but you're looking at like optimized ad combinations, right? So you're looking at the components of an ad, but specifically it's limited in the ones that you can use. And much like DCO, the system is going to converge on different components of these assets, right? So what's happening then is you're putting an ad out, and then you're putting it on Facebook specifically here because DCV is a facet of Facebook. And then it's optimizing on the creative components. So say that you're in the prospecting funnel and you're on a traffic objective and your main KPI is like landing page view rate, and that's what you're tracking towards. You're looking at different combinations of images, text, calls to action, that sort of thing. That the system knows that like people are likely to kind of click and take that action, and so then it's converging on that, but it's doing it while you're uploading everything at once in the back end. So as I mentioned, you're serving ads to the highest performing creative combinations. It's a great tool because we're trying to learn more about what creative resonates with people. As a marketer or an advertiser, I think this is something that we're always like really, really obsessing over. Really trying to like hit that right person in their journey. So it kind of helps to learn stuff about it, right? Why do you do this kind of stuff then? Like, what's the point? And everything we do is because you're trying to solve a problem. At least that's how my day goes. I solve problems. Getting older is weird, by the way. Like, so I made a Pulp Fiction reference the other day, and like, there's a bunch of people at work that are like 24 and stuff, and like nobody. I solved the problem, and I said I was the wolf. If anybody's seen, right? Thank you. Yeah, and it was like kind of like that. Oh yeah, my mom likes Pulp Fiction. I'm like, that's rude, okay? But anyway, we don't always know what creative works best, right, for your audience or a placement. What do we do when like we don't know what creative is working best, but we test, right? And we test and we manually test. So it's time consuming and it's kind of a pain in the ass, basically, right? So you're A/B testing, you're building fully formed ads, and then you're testing over and over again, rinse and repeat kind of thing. So we can make creative permutations of ads using kind of different constraints, whether it's on bidding, whether it's on targeting, or whether it's on audiences. And this can kind of help solve the issue, right? So that's why there's some hope with dynamic creative, right? It allows us to identify and target right audience, right placement, and actually know like what's performing best for our campaign. So how does it work? We're looking at breaking an ad, as I mentioned, into the most basic components, right? So we have titles, we have images, we have videos, we have your calls to action, we have your text, like any characteristic of the ad itself, basically. And then again, it's exploring and spending on these ads for any given impression, right? So we're looking at the different users, the different placements that you're running, or the different types of objectives that you're running your campaign. So you can even see when we get down to workflows, how much easier and how much simpler this slide is as opposed to like the DCO slide in display, right? We're looking at, currently you specify your targeting, you build your ads, and you monitor and you adjust as you're just putting ads, fully formed ads into the market. With a dynamic workflow, you're still specifying your targeting, but then you're uploading a feed of assets, and then the system is optimizing. And then it's serving the best performing combination of these assets to the target market. Setup is easy, and if you're using Ads Manager, I have like just a quick guide here so you at least kind of know what's going on there, but you would set up your campaign as normal, right? So again, I've been using traffic as an objective. Say that's our objective, we're hitting our campaign there. You would run in and you would still, set up your campaign as normal, whatever kind of taxonomy you're using to signify what campaign it is. But then there's a little button that says dynamic creative, and if you toggle that on, it will enable this for campaigns later as you start building out those campaigns. It's right up where you would set your budget and your schedule, basically. So you keep going on as normal. You're uploading any of your applicable audiences, any CRM lists, any native targeting, any types of updates there. And then you're kind of going on and building your campaign. Then it starts to get a little bit different to where you're not just uploading one thing, you're uploading multiple things, right? So if we have multiple images that we want to kind of go through, multiple videos, you should be using video, by the way, because static images don't do as well. If anybody tells you anything, tell them they're a liar. They said otherwise. I'm not this much of an asshole in my real life, I promise. Like I get up here and I sound like one. But you know, same thing goes with your text, right? So you can have different blocks of text, things that are relevant to your ad. You would upload different headlines, different descriptions. Your destination URL, you only get one. And I think this is important to kind of talk about because there's a layer of complexity. Say you were tracking towards multiple URLs, right? Like if you work in social and you're a marketer, what's your job but is to make somebody take an intended action on that ad. When it goes to the websites, right? Like say you're trying to get somebody to click to the website and take, that's UX's problem. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't become your problem by proxy, right? But like that is like the web team's problem. So eliminating that kind of discrepancy with URLs, I think is huge. So it's only going to track towards one URL. And then of course, calls to actions, which I kind of love because sometimes you spend, especially like in the e-com space, we spend times deliberating over like, I don't know, does shop now work better than download or this or that? Just put it in, let the system figure it out and stop arguing about it, right? And then you just publish. That's it. You hit the publish button, publish your ad. It's important after you do this though, to like go on and just kind of marinate on that for a little bit. Especially if you're running like say like promo campaigns, you know, say like you're a clothing retailer or something, you have like a sale over the weekend. Probably not a good use here because you still want to give the system time to optimize. So if you're like one of those clients that's going, hey, this has been live for 4 hours and we're not hitting our goals and what the hell, the sky is falling kind of thing, then at least like, okay, probably not the best for you in that moment. But if it's a longer term campaign and you're letting it run for at least like 7 to 10 days, then you're probably good and you're starting to see results. In terms of seeing your results, it's pretty easy, right? So you go up to breakdown and you break down and sort by dynamic creative element, and then the different elements come up. You can download the data, you can pivot the data, and you can start kind of seeing where your benchmarks are and where you're either meeting, succeeding, or well below those KPIs, so you can kind of adjust, have a winner. I like this because what can we do then? But then we take all this information about what creative is performing best, and we actually just flip right there, put it into our evergreen campaigns, and then we have a better baseline for what campaigns that we're building after that. So it's basically simple, right? You know, since we're not relying on fully formed ads, it kind of simplifies our time that we spend deliberating on things, and we can get more time into like building things, putting them out in the market, right? So then we're leading with performance-led creative. So we know where the combinations of this creative goes. We're driving performance through the campaign this way. Again, the quicker launch times, right? So everybody's not kind of bitching at each other in the back end, and then you're boosting your performance, right? So you're delivering the best creative for the campaign each time around. Just to kind of hammer home on those parts, efficiency is great. This is an efficient thing to do because you're gaining efficiency through the automation of your system, right? So you're freeing up time for the media side and the creative departments to kind of like just be harmonious with one another. So the creative then is highly targeted that way, right? So again, like the right creative reaching the right person. Your ads resonate better, so oftentimes you do see a little bit ROI if that's kind of your jam. And since you're getting better insights, then again, what are you doing to taking this data and running it back into your campaigns when you know what you know about people in the future? Here's a quick cheat sheet. If you're running dynamic campaigns in Facebook, you've got a conversion objective, a traffic objective, video views, reach, brand awareness, and app installs. Those are the only types of objectives that you can run this campaign on. Again, there's up to 10 different images or videos. I mean, think about with display, while I was talking about DCO, the possibilities are endless. It can be a nightmare. Here, it's like you're limited to 10 pick the best, and then go through it, right? You have up to 5 different versions of your body text, titles, descriptions, and CTAs, and as I mentioned, only one destination URL. It's really easy to get started. We kind of went through it, but you create your desired campaign, you toggle it on, you upload everything, and then you kind of go. So how do we bring this to action then? It's a collective effort between the creative side of the house and the media side of the house. And I think both kind of areas have certain responsibilities that they have to kind of follow through on. So the creative side, you're providing obviously the images or the videos or whatever it would be, right? Believe it or not, the creatives are making the videos. You're providing the ad copy. You're working with the media team to kind of understand the target market so you can create best what you think is going to work. And then you're also setting and tracking any sort of creative KPIs. Now, if you're on the media and the execution side of the house, you're providing metrics from similar campaigns. If you're working on DCO, set the partner, like please don't let the creative team set it. I can't stress this enough. Set it yourselves. Provide any audience data. You're going to work on the tactical execution, and any KPIs or any reporting your media team should be owning because you're ultimately responsible for the success of that campaign. So when it comes to retargeting, as I mentioned, this is absolutely huge. It is absolutely a good way to use this, right? So you have, how am I on time? Okay, good. So retarget, right? So I mean, think about it like a traditional funnel, right? Like you're hitting people very broad in the top half of the funnel. When you're in prospecting, they start getting narrower, and by the time you're retargeting, that you want like super high quality. That way, if you're on a conversions objective, you're measuring cost per order. You want these people to buy your product. In DCO, you can use this in like a cross-sell, upsell kind of capacity. I like this because machine learning can kind of suggest products, or if you're in the B2B space, if they're like intangible products, right, that are more like goods or services, it can suggest this to people. As I mentioned, it should be a baseline for future full funnel campaigns. So any of the data and any of the learning that you're getting, make sure you let that guide you as you start to build new campaigns. And then I really like this can help you create stronger lookalike audiences. So if your audiences are targeted, niche, strong, whatever word you want to use, then when you say, okay, I want to run like a 1% a lookalike, make yours look like mine kind of thing, then by proxy, you're getting stronger lookalike audience as well. That's huge. So essentially what's happening here is we're letting the data tell a story. You're expanding on your audiences, your creatives. You're A/B testing at a sandbox. You're rinsing and then repeating. You get a stronger connection with your audiences, and you're able to kind of segment your marketing more effectively. So 3 ways that we can ensure success and that you don't have clients just absolutely losing their mind at you when you're launching these campaigns. First of all, set realistic timelines, right? From genesis to launch. And this needs to include creative production timelines and then any trafficking timelines. So if your media team or your creative team, for example, knows that like to film and edit videos or whatever, and we're adding maybe 3 or 4 more than we would normally in a campaign, they need an extra week, then we need to make sure that we're actually building that into kind of our media plan. Then you want to manage expectations when you're in market, right? As I mentioned, you have to give the platform time to optimize. This isn't something that just happens, in a matter of hours. So if it's at least like 7 to 10 days, then make sure this is something that you are communicating as you build and set these live. And then determine KPIs, right? And then stick to them. So again, if there's some vanity awareness metric in the top funnel, if there's a traffic metric in the mid funnel, and then a conversions or purchase objective in the lower funnel, then make sure you're setting your benchmark and sticking to these KPIs and determine a winner. Don't try and pull the trigger too early and melt down if things aren't going your way. Let the system optimize and then stick to your guns there. So I hope this kind of helps you in summation understand some of the value while we're creating this personalized scale, personalized experience at scale for people, right? So it's about just kind of really, really honing in on targeted creative for people. Taking a new approach to your marketing campaigns and your lower funnel tactics. So really trying to understand more about the people that are most likely to kind of convert. Work on crafting better user personas, and then make sure that you're planning for campaigns better so you don't have creative and media teams just passive aggressively fighting over email kind of thing. That's it. That's the talk. That's me on Twitter and Instagram. Should you want to see more about how boring my life is, but I really appreciate the the time that I got to spend with you guys today. So thank you so much. I hope you have a great rest of the day. I mean, sure. If there are questions, sure. Put me on the spot so I can just borrow them. So we'll see.
Close toss. We work in a highly compliance-driven industry. Do you have any advice for those of us that are in financial services or insurance around how to get this through a compliance team that is used to reviewing a static advertising?
So is the problem like that they're like when you say static, do you mean images as opposed to video, or do you mean?
Yeah, so we've got someone. No, even in that case, we've got someone that wants to see the actual ad that would be presented to a customer, so that they can make sure that it's compliant.
Well, first I would find a crisp $100 bill. You might have to like almost take them through a sample campaign. Like I would actually show them how all the elements are, right? Like if everything is going to be like in compliance no matter what, like right, like it's not going to be some far out messaging or something of that nature. You can almost kind of build mocks. If they're like a visual learner, I would almost do that, right? Because then it's just how do you appeal to people. I had similar kind of pain points running this on a very rigid, very enterprise B2B account, you know what I mean? And the best way there was almost the efficiency and time argument, right? Like we could get around it because I was like, what are we going to do that would be out of compliance? Like we're not going to do that kind of thing, right? The creative is going to be, up to standards, everything's going to be brand safe, that kind of thing. But actually, I would look at like how much time your teams are spending sometimes doing this kind of stuff, and saying like, okay, like we will get better data on the back end, and I think that's the play. It's not necessarily like let's look at what this is going to look like, but actually like saying like we will get better data about our users by running these campaigns. Let us just try to send the benchmarks and then go from there. So that's actually the angle that I would probably take, and I did take to kind of win them over.